So
Yeah.
we welcome everyone for today's 32 or 32 second special talk, that is special missions of ISRO. Today we have our speaker, Dr. Kalpana Arvind. She was Associated Director, retired, and she has been associated with the ISRO team. She has joined initially as into the senior division of ISRO Satellite Center, Old Airport Road, as a scientist in June 1986 after completing her engineering. Initially, she was assigned the work of developing sensors processing electronic package for Indian National Satellite INSAT 2 series. Till date, more than 40 packages are flown, including Chandrayaan 1, 2, and 3, and even Mars Orbiter mission. That's the MOM, what we call. Represented senior systems for pre-launch, launch, and post-launch related activities at MCF. Hassan improvement in term of miniaturization, compact and less weight and volume was done by Kalpana ma'am as a single electronic cards for Indian remote sensing spacecraft. Later, she was shifted to Penwa and renamed the Laboratory for Electro Optics System, that is LEOS, a unit of ISRO developing world class optics and altitude sensors. Also designed and developed advanced fiber optics based gyroscopes and MEMS based sensors for inertial reference units and as an accelerometer, respectively. Uh, Under her guidance, laser and vision based navigational sensors, cameras, and payloads are developed for Chandrayaan 2 and 3, that is for lander and rover, to demonstrate the latest technological advancement. High accuracy Star Trekker with compact design weighing only 70 grams is flown in nano satellites. High accuracy sun sensors and magnetometers for Aditya L1 was released under her guidance, and she's also guiding the team to design and develop a new advanced technology for future missions of ISRO. She has superannuated on 31st May 2024. So as a recently only she has retired. That's the associated director from LEOS, responsible for delivering attitude sensors and optics for all missions of ISRO, and completed 38 years of service, or I would say not only to ISRO but to our great nation. She has published 55 papers at national and international conference journals on the work done at ISRO, received two patents and applied for more. She is the member of Instrument Society of India, Astronomical Society of India, and Indian Society of Systems for Science and Engineering. She has been awarded as a Woman Scientist of Year 2005 by Astronomical Society of India. She received a memento from ex-president late Sri APJ Abdul Kalam, and she has also received International Women's Day Award by Delhi Commission in 2017 and 2021 as well for her representation of ISRO for space activities and Chandrayaan 2 missions respectively. Like that, she has won many awards, prestigious awards from various bodies. She is also interested in trekking, cooking, and delivering lectures to ISRO training progressive schools, colleges, and companies. So, with that, I welcome Ms. Kalpana ma'am for today's lecture. Today's Astro Talks highlights ISRO's remarkable progress in satellite technology. Since its inception, India's space program has focused on satellite communication, remote sensing, space transportation, application program, excelling in all areas. Mostly the landmarking missions are like Mangalyaan, Chandrayaan, Aditya L1, and in recent, by start of this year, we have seen the spacecraft docking, which actually showcase the India's cost-effective advancement. So this session will cover these milestones and ISRO's upcoming missions, reflecting Dr. Vikram Sarabhai's vision and ISRO's motto of reaching for the stars. So with that, I welcome ma'am again and hand over the session to her so that she can start with her sessions and give us the insight about the ISRO's missions, past missions and future missions. Over to you, ma'am.
A little bit of ketchup. There we go. Oh no, it's finished.
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
Kalpana,
Am
ma'am.
I audible? Yeah, am I audible now?
You are audible now, yeah.
Okay.
But your
I
presentation is not
will
very. You have to
one
put it.
minute. I'll present mine.
Yeah.
You're able to see the screen? This is
Yes.
my first slide.
Just click on that hide option on your screen.
Yeah. I'll do that. Good evening to all of you. So this was a long awaiting lecture I'm supposed to deliver last year itself. Sorry for the delay. And because of the delay, I can add two more programs of ISRO. So anyway, today I will try to cover within the time limit. Sometimes it may exceed the time limit, so please bear with me. So good evening, and first of all, thank you for asking me to give this lecture. And this thanks goes to both Bharat Adur and Mangesh, who was interacting with me for the past 1 year. And I am really very sorry, and I apologize for that delay in giving my lectures. Anyway, once again, a good evening to all of you. And you can note down your questions. At the end of the session, we will have a question and answer session. So my talk today it will cover about because kids are there. I want to talk about the introduction about the space and the main missions of ISRO and what are the special missions like Mars orbiter mission, Chandrayaan, Aditya, and the latest docking missions called SpaceX. Not only this, what future ISRO is planning also I will be covering in this lecture. So anyway, all of you know Dr. Vikram Ambalal Sarabhai is the father of our Indian space program. He has a rare combination of a scientist, innovator, and industrialist. Without his vision, ISRO wouldn't have been there. And his dream, whatever he wanted to do for India, already ISRO has accomplished. Over and above, we have accomplished more. So this is the point where ISRO started, the genesis of ISRO. It started in a small church at Tumba, it's the Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, where the early activities of all ISRO started in this church only. Today, the same church is maintained as it is with a beautiful exhibition. So kids, whenever you visit Trivandrum, kindly go and visit this museum. And how ISRO has grown over the years. When Aryabhatta was launched in the year 1975, the 2 rupee note Aryabhatta satellite was printed. Same thing when Mars orbiter mission in the year 2016, the money value was 2000 rupees. It is 1000 times more. ISRO has grown. It is still growing. As on date, if we see, we have launched almost 130 satellites. The first satellite is the Aryabhatta. The latest one is the navigation satellite, which was launched recently on Jan 29, 2025. I'll just cover about these things overall this full year. And this year, because Aryabhatta was launched in 1975, it is the golden jubilee year for Aryabhatta, which is falling on the same April 19th, 2025. ISRO is planning to celebrate this event in a big manner. And coming to introduction of space, everybody knows how our atmosphere is there. So the lowest layer, the atmosphere, troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and exosphere. We always will be there above the thermosphere and exosphere. All satellites will be there. So this is the point where I will be talking. We can leave a satellite at a height from the Earth's surface around 350 kilometer onwards, but the satellite stability will be pulled by Earth's gravity, so it will not be too stable. So we always keep our satellites above 450 kilometer and above. So this classification of satellite orbit also I will cover in my further slides. So how the space environment is there? If you see, it is mainly vacuum. We have 1 atmospheric pressure in Earth. So the pressure, there is no pressure. That's why whatever you leave in space, it will float. Even the International Space Station, where the human beings are there inside the capsule, there also they will float because it's the vacuum environment. The second one is the plasma environment. There, the solar wind, solar flares, micrometeorites. Other day he was talking about meteors. So all these environment, it is always happening in space. And the temperature, that is a thermal environment, if you see in space, it is minus 150 degrees centigrade when it is not visible to sun. When it is seeing the sun, the temperature can go as high as 120 degrees centigrade. And the other radiations are the galactic cosmic rays, protons, heavier ions. All these things are affecting a spacecraft, what is there in space. So when you design a satellite, all these things are taken into account. With that, the whole spacecraft is taking, it will withstand all this environment and it has to work within its lifetime. So, to do before going there, these are all the famous scientists who have put the fundamental rules for all our things, which I am not going to talk about it because these people's ideas, theories, and equations are the basic lifeline for all our ISRO missions. So mainly the Newton's laws of motion all the kids might be studying. So these three laws are very very useful to all the missions of ISRO. So this is I am not going to talk about this because this already you people have studied about this. Because in ISRO we are doing both satellites as well as rockets. So rocket works on the third principle of Newton's law. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. That is how the rockets are pushed up because of the burning fuel is lifting the satellite. Both the rocket and satellite is at the tip. So these are all our ISRO launch vehicle family. We started with the satellite launch vehicle SLV, which is only 40 kg weight, only it can carry. Today we are able to carry 4-ton satellite, which is GSLV Mark III, which has taken our Chandrayaan 2 and 3 to moon. So that is the capability of ISRO over the years. Though initial years, lot of problems, failures, both in SLV and ASLV, but today Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle PSLV is our workhorse, and 100th launch recently you have witnessed that has taken NVS satellite that was from a GSLV rocket. So this is our history of launch vehicles what ISRO has made, and all these works are mainly so many engineers worked day and night, and the technology was not available and made indigenous technology. Coming to satellites, we know any body which is unattended revolving about a larger one is called a satellite. Like moon is a satellite for Earth. We call man-made satellites also are called satellites, but they are called artificial satellites. So the first satellite which was launched by Soviet Union Sputnik, that is in the year 1957. Though I also am not born, maybe some of the people the people might have born. So they have launched their first satellite in the year 1957 itself. So how a satellite is getting launched, how it remains in orbit. If you see the point where it is getting launched, if the force, whatever we are going to give, depending upon that, the escape velocity, what is minimum required to push the satellite or the rocket to go around Earth is the point where we talk about A, B, C, and D. So that is how it has to move. So the minimum force what it is required is 8 kilometers per second is the velocity. If we give only, the satellite will go into space. So that is given by the rocket, and the other right side is showing the how the horizon, that is our Earth, how it curves down. That is what I have represented here. So the satellite, how it remains is the balance between its satellite velocity and the gravitational force between the Earth. Because of that, it stays in orbit. This am explaining it with the next thing. So the both the centripetal force and the gravitational force, it has to act, and then the spacecraft, whatever you are leaving, at what velocity you have left, the thrust is given by the rocket. With that thrust, it moves. So next comes the, if you leave a satellite, how it moves in the orbit. So if you see the first green line, inner line, that is called our polar satellite orbits, which is come, the satellite will come from north pole to the south pole. That's why we call this orbit as polar orbit, or the low earth orbit also we will call. All our remote sensing satellites are put in this orbit. Normally, the distance from the Earth, it will be 400 to 800 kilometers. If we come to the purple line, that is the geostationary orbit, which is takes one round in 24 hours. Whereas low Earth orbit, depending upon the height, it takes 12 or 14 orbits per day. And the intermediate orbit is for the GPS satellites, what our navigational satellite, NAVIC satellite, is called in the intermediate orbit. So, how a spacecraft motion, we have both translational and rotational motion. So, these two motions are there in a spacecraft, so that we can make the spacecraft where it has to look. If the antenna has to point towards Earth, so the spacecraft has to be rotated. So, this rotation and what rate it has to be rotated, all these things are sensed by sensors where I have worked, and that any orientation of the satellite is called attitude. So that is measured by the attitude sensors, and any spacecraft, whatever we leave in the space, its position and velocity both are very much important. And for a low Earth orbit or a geostationary orbit, these two things are always controlled, and the spacecraft is always operated in closed loop. I think, hope I'm not too technical, because just simple principles I wanted to tell. Why we need to do the attitude control. Mainly the power is generated from the solar panel, what we fly in the satellite. Always the satellite solar panels are stowed when it is getting launched inside the rocket. Once it is injected into orbit, the solar panels will open with the automatic command from the satellite. So that once it is opened up, the solar panel will rotate and it will point towards sun to generate the power. So that is the main function, first thing. Second one is communication, because once satellite is sent, later on all autonomy commands will not be there. The ground station has to send commands. So the antenna has to point towards Earth. So that purpose also we need attitude control. Third one is the payload cameras, which are supposed to do the imaging. So they have to turn back. So for that also attitude control is required. Sometimes the orbit where we are looking have to be either increased or reduced. So for that we use thrusters. So to know how much we are going, what angle you are going to fire, to know about this also attitude control is required. The other main reason, heat dissipation control, because we have seen the temperature minus 150 to plus 120 is there in space. None of the electronic components can work. So we have to ensure its operating limit. What we keep is minimum minus 25 to plus 55. Actually, components can work from minus 55 to plus 125. That is its maximum, but it will not give long life. So we normally operate any electronic systems within less than what it is required, so that we call it as derating. With the derated condition, it will work throughout its life without any problems. So to do this thermal control is very much required. For this thermal control, you have seen all the satellites are having one yellow color cover outside. That is the main, it's like a blanket for the satellite. It is made of multi-layer insulation blankets, which will not allow any heat to come inside. And sometimes you might have seen a white color uh, silver like paper, that is OSR, we call it optical solar reflectors. They will reflect the solar light, sunlight, so that points will not get heated up. So sometimes the heating area and the cooling area we use in the panels itself, called heat pipes, where we'll put liquid ammonia. When it is heated, liquid ammonia will become gas. When where it is going to the cooler side of the satellite, it will get cooled back, and this process will continue to maintain the heat dissipation. The other one is sensitive component should not see the sun. Like if you are doing a sensors which is mounted outside, where a star sensor has to look at the star, it should not see the sun. Otherwise, its spots will get damaged. So we need to protect. So for those controls also, attitude control is required. So all these controls we give in terms of rotation angles. They are called Euler angles or direction cosine matrix or quaternions. So the sensor output, what we give it to the spacecraft is in these points. So if you see the right side slides, how a error, we call this yaw roll pitch is equivalent to your cube xyz axis. So the axis where the spacecraft moves is called roll axis, where the spacecraft axis which is pointing towards earth is called yaw axis, and perpendicular to these two is called pitch axis. So this is the convention we use for all satellites. Similar conventions are used in our aircrafts also. So main satellite application areas, if you see in ISRO, I think many of you might have heard, that is Indian National Satellite, that is the INSAT. Now we are calling it as GSAT. It is mainly used for communication and weather monitoring and disaster management. That is the leftmost corner. And the second one is the IRS or RISAT, this Indian remote sensing, and we do both in visible and infrared. So radar imaging satellites can take picture in the night. So that is why RISAT is called. So we can do both microwave imaging and optical, means visible light also we can do take pictures. And coming to third application is the satellite aided navigation, which is equivalent to GPS what US NASA is giving and the GLONASS in Russia. We have our own NAVIC system which is not being used by public, but we are using it for our own satellites, plus army people, plus aircraft people also are using it. And the fourth category is the interplanetary missions and some of the special missions which we call both Chandrayaan, Mangalyaan, spacecraft recovery experiment, and Astrosat is one particular mission where astronomy only the visible and ultraviolet light we have taken pictures, and our future human space missions also comes under this category. So in a spacecraft, what is the attitude requirement? Attitude means the pointing accuracy. So if we see for a remote sensing satellite, all the three axes, yaw, roll, pitch, if you see, they have to give 0.05 degree, and the rate of the spacecraft will be 4.8 into 10 power minus 5 degree per second. So the spacecraft will move at a very small rates, and all the three axes have to be within this looking angle, then only a picture will be very good. Because in a camera, if you move the camera, it will take a blur picture, then it is very difficult to identify. So the platform should be stable. So that is why attitude holding what they have given requirement. When this is the requirement for a particular spacecraft, the sensors should be one order better than this, then only we can achieve this type of attitude errors. If you come to communication satellite, this much is not required because the antenna will be always pointing towards earth and it is visible. So RF communication will happen. So there we have given slight one order less is the attitude requirement. So this is the way our both communication satellite and remote sensing satellites are able to work. So in a satellite, if you see, the yellow line left side is called mainframe systems and the right sides are called payload systems. So for a remote sensing satellite, the payload is the main cameras, science payloads. For a communication satellite, transponders and other things are the payloads. So any satellite will have a payload. But the mainframe system, whatever we have put in the left side, electrical systems and mechanical systems, this is common for a 10 kg a small nano satellite to 5 ton big satellite. All these things are required. Maybe one or two, maybe very less things will be there, but all are required in any spacecrafts. So coming to mechanical systems, the main structure, it's like our body. I will show the photographs of the structure looks. So structure, thermal, propulsion and mechanism elements, all these comes under mechanical systems. Electrical systems, we put it as AOCS, that is called attitude and orbit control system, power system, telemetry and telecommand, that is TTC systems. So under AOCS, we have both sensors as well as actuators. So the sensors area only where I have worked, which is the laboratory for electro-optic systems, and power is the person who generates the power through panels, and batteries are required for the backup when during eclipse battery will power whole satellite. And telemetry telecommand system is the one which is able to communicate with the satellite as well as to get all the health parameters and the payload data to ground. So these are all the things. Right side already I have explained, based on the remote sensing payloads or communication payloads, their information has to come back to the ground. So that is how the data is getting transmitted. For a remote sensing payload, the data is enormous, because we have seen when you take a picture, the picture based on the resolution 1 megapixel. So that much data has to be sent. So normally we store it in a data handling baseband system. When the satellite comes over India, we will download the signals from the tape recorder to the ground station. So this is the main attitude and orbit control system, is the main brain behind any satellite. So the center point AOCE is the controlling all the people. He takes inputs from the sensor. So left side if you see, star sensor, sun sensor, earth sensor, magnetometers, because these four sources are available when you are looking into space. Use them as the main source and made the sensors, and they will give the input to the control system. Based on the error, the control system using the thrusters or the torquers or the wheels, they will control it in the closed loop. So this system will be always operated in closed loop. To operate this further, it is connected with the power as well as telecommand, as well as to the payload and the antennas, telemetry system to the ground station telemetry, and some GPS for low earth orbit satellites, and gyros packages also are connected with this. So main brain behind any satellite is the attitude and orbit control electronics, which is made up of with a processor based design. So this is the closed loop control what I was talking about. Any satellite movement, anything is checked by.
List three words that describe you.
I think I have some issue to go back. Any spacecraft, whatever it moves, the movement is sensed by the sensors. So the sensor will measure the error. Once the error is given, control system will act and correct back. So to do that, these are all the different attitude sensors which we are making at LEOS. Using the infrared radiation from the Earth, we've made Earth sensors, and the magnetic field use the magnetometers. Using the sun, we have made sun sensors with different varieties to give different accuracies, and star sensor, which are the very highest accuracy. And we have here also we have made different varieties, Mark 1 to Mark 4, and a nano star sensor which is only 70 grams weight. This is flown in nano satellites of INS 1C and 1D, 2TD. So this is the typical spacecraft, how it will look. So in the center point, if you see, that is a central cylinder, which is the main structure. With this, all the four sides, four panels will get connected, and top and bottom also two panels will get connected. In the center cylinder only, our fuel and oxidizer, which is the main fuel for the satellite to move, where the thrusters as well as a big LAM engine, liquid apogee motor engine is put, which will raise the orbit to the required orbit, or to correct the orbit also we use small thrusters. So this fuel and oxidizer tank decides the life of the satellites. So if a mission is 7 years or 15 years, the size of the tank will differ. And right side and left side we can see the south and north solar array, and the east and west side we can see the reflectors. This is mainly a communication satellite parts when you open the satellite. And earth viewing side and the top side, some antennas as well as sensors will be there. So this is the way we design any projects. First is the planning phase, then execution phase, then completion. So planning phase, we do the baseline design reviews, and later on with the execution, before executing, preliminary design review, detailed design review, critical design review. We spend most of our time in designing for any type of satellites, then final pre-shipment review, and then launch and post-launch activities. So within this period, so many other activities will happen parallelly, and each individual designs will get assembled and tested. So we test all the spacecraft components as a subsystem level, that is the left side, and system level. Subsystem means like sensor is one subsystem, power package is one subsystem, control is one power subsystem. So these systems are tested individually for all these tests what I have mentioned here, because in spacecraft rocket, due to rocket we have vibration, so that we do vibration test, and all the system has to work in vacuum condition. We do thermal and thermo vacuum tests, and some interface, because sensors are connected with controls, so we do interface test, and sometimes the sensors will be connected to baseband system also. So everywhere we do interface test, and some of the special systems which have rotating parts we do live test, and some of the components which are not available space grade we do qualification. So any system which is new will make with the qualification model first, do all the tests 100%. Once it's passed, flight models are made and tested. So when these subsystems are getting integrated in the spacecraft level, again all these tests also are repeated, because as a full system end to end how it is going to work in space, we do all the tests at spacecraft levels also. So to do this, we have different test facilities like vacuum chamber, antenna test facilities, as well as vibration test facilities, acoustic test facilities, and center gravity and moment of inertia test facilities, all are available at ISRO. And this is the major mission elements. Once the spacecraft is launched, the mission team is the person who controls from the mission control center, either from ISTRAC at Bangalore or MCF at Hassan. We do the full controlling of the spacecraft. From that launch till its lifetime, the spacecraft are maintained by initially mission team, later on by the respective control system people. So if you see a typical payload, how it passes, and the cameras will be switched on when it is coming over Earth. That is what I am depicting here. So these operations are planned automatically. Once the pass comes over India, it takes the pictures, and the data are stored in the recorders, because simultaneously also sometimes data will be received by ground. Most of the health parameters we receive immediately, but image data we will download it later. So if we see remote sensing satellites, they have lot of applications, and user areas are many. So that application areas I have listed in the right side, and many users are using all our ISRO products. So this is the IRS P6 is the earliest satellite where the resolutions are almost 10 to 50 meters. So this is Delhi. So if you see on south to that area, so this is what we got in the olden days. If you see off late the pictures, it is Cartosat 2 series. This is the picture of Bangalore, majestic area. Left side is the railway station. Middle part is the bus station. So this is the majestic area, and this is the Mumbai, which is Cartosat 2A image, both black and white and color images we can get. And the highest resolution we were able to get was, that is almost like 0.28 meter object we can see from a height of 505 kilometer using an optics of 1.2 meter camera, which is the high resolution camera what we have flown till date. That is the Cartosat 3 mission. So if you see the photos, this is the Qatar Stadium, and this is the color image of that. So these are all the remote sensing satellite applications. Coming to INSAT application, mainly it is communication. So all your TV, telephone, fax, your stock exchange, and tele-education, telemedicine, all these things are operated by INSAT. So how we go to geostationary mission is, satellite in the inner circle transfer orbit. If you see there, the spacecraft is left, and by firing the LAM engine, the elliptical orbit is made into circular. By 2 or 3 times we do the firing, and once it is fired, then we will do the deployment of the panels as well as the satellite antennas. So that is how was done in olden days. Sometimes if the satellite weight is small and the power wise if we have to do, so we immediately after injection the panels are open for low earth orbit. For geostationary mission, the one side of the panel will be always pointing to sun. So in the transfer orbit, the power what it generates is sufficient. Once it reaches the circular orbit only, the communication payload is switched on where the high power is required. By that time panels are deployed and it will generate the enough power for the payload to operate. So this is how we are operating. So for a geostationary mission, it takes more than 1 week to 10 days to normalize to come back to this orbit. And for a low earth orbit, immediately the things will start working, because immediately we'll deploy the panel, and within second orbit or second day, third day, the payloads will be switched on. So this is one of the concept of tele-education, how remote village people are able to listen to a person who is talking in some Delhi or Bombay or some places. So even students from village also can get a higher education, or the lectures from a student, from a teacher who is there in an urban area. And telemedicine concept also similar thing. So village remote area people can get the guidance of an expert doctor through spacecraft. That is the telemedicine concept. And this is one more, the GPS aided geo augmented navigation. It's mainly for the aircraft. One particular Gagan satellite was launched. Now the Navik satellite, this is one more concept, and this is the latest NVS-02 satellite is the latest satellite, because minimum 4 satellites are required to tell the position accurately where we are there. So right now 7 to 8 satellites they are planning to launch. At a given time 4 satellites are required to give the accuracy for the Navik systems. So coming to our special missions of ISRO, anyway, this is the cartoon after our Mars orbit mission. We have seen this. So we are the 4th agents to reach Mars, and that too in the first attempt itself. So that is the ISRO's history. So why did we go to Mars? Because Mars is almost similar to Earth, and if we study about Mars, whether our can know about our future and how our Earth originate, whether life is existing elsewhere in the solar system. To study all these things, we want to go to Mars. And here minimum opportunity occurs every 26 months, means that is the minimum time which we can reach. Normally it takes 275 to 290 days to reach Mars, and it gives how much fuel you can use to reach Mars. So that also is very much limited. So once in 26 months only we can launch a satellite to reach Mars. So that with our own vehicle and the rocket capability, we were reached the Mars in the proper way of by planning and scheduling the each operations. So our PSLV XL launcher itself we have used to plan for this operation. So this mission impossible was made possible because of the people who are there in the bottom line, with starting with our chairman and the ISRO chief and director of ISRO Satellite Center that time, Shivakumar, and Arunan is the project director, and Annadure was the program director. So with their planning and within 2 years, this whole project was planned and successfully it was implemented. And main objective was we wanted to find what is the main reason for this was within less than 300 days we should travel. So and make a deep space mission, first mission, when the mission management, because the distance is more than 400 million kilometers. So communication with that type of system and making everything automatic, because by the time you send command and receive the signal it takes more than 20 minutes to get back the information. So most of the operations were done automatically, so that any contingency comes, we can able to handle it. So the planning was done systematically, and they have studied about some, because any mission without science objective is very very spending so much money is a waste. So they have sent a color cameras and some scientific missions, our own science instruments to study about the upper atmosphere and gaseous constituents. All these things we did some science also, though it is not 100% success, but still the spacecraft worked more than 5 years, and we were able to get minimum whatever science objectives and the technological objectives we have reached. All the objectives are fulfilled in this mission. So, and to do this, we have to use many ground stations, as well as we have made our own 18-meter as well as 32-meter antennas to communicate with the satellite, as well as we have used other agencies like JPL and Canberra, Goldstone, Madrid. Their 34-meter as well as 70-meter antennas also we have used. So this is how the trajectory. So the inner line departure date and how that time where Mars will be, and different firing we did. With the firing, it left Earth's gravity, and when it was at Mars orbit, how we have reached the Mars orbit. That is the point. See, because when Mars at departure time, Mars was here, then Mars orbit, when we reached, how we reached Mars orbit and the Mars orbit insertion. So this is called some Hawkman transfer orbit, because these high-end words are mission terms. Only thing is the minimum distance point where we can reach with the minimum fuel. That is what was planned, and that is how it was executed. And the main difficulty in sending a mission to Mars, why many people have failed in their first attempt, is when it comes to Mars orbit, the spacecraft enters like this. If you see the left side yellow line, what it has to do is to reach to this point, it has traveled almost more than 10 months. So none of the propulsion engines were operated. So first thing is, if engine is not firing and it is running, it is going at a higher velocity, the velocity has to be reduced. If the velocity is not reduced, it will go away from the Mars. So main thing is the main engine has to fire, and the firing also we have to do in such a way that the yellow line, second yellow line, what you are seeing the rocket, it has to reorient the spacecraft to align to the thrust vector, then only you have to fire the engine. So this reorientation is very important, and the engine after so many days of operation, it has to restart. So that burn starting also is very important. And fourth one is the communication. When it happens, Earth is at the blue point. If you see, Earth is behind. So we cannot communicate with the satellite. So everything will go on automatically. Once it comes out, and if it is coming out, we have to re-rotate the spacecraft. Then only it will be working in that orbit. So all these operations have to happen automatically, then only the mission is successful. Otherwise, it will go past Mars and it will not go around Mars. So that is the main criticality. With all these features, our system worked very beautifully. That is how we are, first attempt itself, we were able to go around Mars. So that is the success of our getting into Martian orbit. Once it is in Martian orbit, how the sun orbit geometry will be there, just we are depicting how the communication will happen to Earth, when it will communicate, when it will not communicate. So just we are showing like how it was going. It was going in a highly elliptical orbit. See the blue line, left line, the circle is the Mars, and the satellite was going in a highly elliptical orbit. So this is the Mars orbiter mission. So this is what I was telling you about the yellow things. These are all the multi-layer insulation blankets. And some of this white color area is the optical solar reflective areas, because when we transport the satellite, we cover it with covers, and later on these covers will be removed. And coming to one special mission was the AstroSat mission, where UV, we have a imaging telescope for UV, the optical lens should work in the UV spectrum. So that was designed by our laboratory for electro-optic systems. So this X-ray sky monitors, which is there on the right side, I think astronomy people, they might have seen these things. This alone we can give one lecture separately, but right now I am just covering the overall satellite missions and its operations. And these are all the beautiful images what these cameras have captured, and it was always pointing towards the deep space. So some of the best photos we have got. And coming to the success story of Chandrayaan 2, Chandrayaan 3, because how Chandrayaan 1, 2, 3 has happened also, I am just covering it because everybody knows Chandrayaan 1 is our first deep space mission. And this mission was launched in 2008 and it worked only for almost less than 1 year only. Main thing was it has discovered water molecules on moon. That too because of the top side, that yellow box, which is the moon impact probe suggested by our late Abdul Kalam. He said, when you are going around the moon, why can't you do some extra work? So this was asked by him to put. So this moon impact probe was designed later, and when it impacted, that whatever molecules were discovered. So we are the first people to discover water molecules on moon. And in Chandrayaan 2, though orbiter was very, very successful, it is working even today, but lander and rover has not met the mission requirements. So that I will come to talk about it. Both in lander as well as in orbiter, we had lot of payloads. Chandrayaan 1, we had lot of payloads, but all were from the outside agencies. But in Chandrayaan 2, all the payloads were made in India and all the payloads are working even today. And Chandrayaan 2 lander payloads, what we have done in Chandrayaan 3 also it went and they all worked. And in rover also things have worked very well in Chandrayaan 3. So this is how Chandrayaan 2, whatever way Earth point, whatever firing we did, and then escaping the Earth's velocity and going around the moon. This was demonstrated in Chandrayaan 1 itself. Same thing we did for Chandrayaan 2 also. But the deboost happened from 30 kilometer to 100 kilometer orbit. The touchdown point, it did not work. So the separation, everything went as explained. So this is the planned orbit and the trajectory. So the system worked how much, that I will come in the next slide. So what was shown in the dotted lines is the flight path. What is the red line is the nominal what we have expected. This is how the failure happened at a distance of 7.4 kilometers. So rough braking phase, we could make it almost what we planned. But from rough braking phase to the fine braking phase, the problem started. So due to the engine behavior and our own problems in the one software glitch, plus the security features what we have planned, with all those things, instead of coming to the planned landing site at point, this is the place where it has landed. So because it was not able to control properly, the plan is any automatic system, because this full 15 minutes operation is done automatically, nobody can do anything. In a computer, you have seen in a normal any computer, if something goes wrong, this computer doesn't know what to do. Similar thing happened because of the glitch in the software, plus the engine malfunctions, what way it is supposed to work, it didn't know what to do, so it did not do anything. Because of that, it simply fell down. So that is the thing. So but within a month, we came to know about how it has happened, where it has gone wrong. So due to that, how we have to correct it in Chandrayaan 3. So to do that, first thing is we increased the area of the landing site, because people know South Pole is the area where lot of craters are there. If you land in a crater, it is difficult to communicate to Earth, and most of the time sunlight will not be there. Already we have only 14 days lifetime in moon. So within that 14 days, we should able to communicate and we should generate power. So to do that, to know the best area for landing, we used Chandrayaan 2 science payload. One is called the Orbiter High Resolution Camera OHRC. We took the image from the camera in both the sides. Like one side you take and you rotate the satellite and take the same point in the opposite direction. When you take two images, you can generate a digital elevation model of that area. So that is how, because Chandrayaan 2 to Chandrayaan 3, we had 4 years of time. So within that time, the Chandrayaan 2 payloads were used to generate very big maps of the Chandrayaan South Pole area, where number of craters are less, where the minimum hazard areas, everything was known, because the resolution at which we could get the image was 0.32 meter at 100-kilometer altitude. So using this stereo imaging, we did lot of digital elevation model, and the area was increased. In Chandrayaan 2, it was 2 kilometer by 2 kilometer, but in Chandrayaan 3, we made 4 kilometer by 2 kilometer hazard-free area maps were generated. So this one, using this advantage, Chandrayaan 3, many things have become successful. So most of the things, whatever we have used in Chandrayaan 2, we have used in Chandrayaan 3, and some new technologies, what is required, and what tests we didn't do or we didn't have enough time to do, we did again. And this time, instead of, we wanted to land at any given place at designated landing site, whatever place it is, it has to land. So that was the main objective, and it has to do the rover operations also, as well as lander science payload operations. So all those 4 years, we were very busy in making all the improvements. We never said whatever suggestions gave from all the review, because in ISRO everything is review system. Everything will be discussed across the table with whether it is a small diploma engineer or an engineer to higher level the review committee chairman. Everybody will be there in the things, and everybody's suggestions and improvements were taken. We never said we will not do. Everything was taken, and that is how the modification wise, very little modification, almost same orbiter and lander things, but improvements in lander as well as reduction in orbiter things were done with that. And what all the remaining tests, some special tests also we did for all the landing sensors, which is very important. So all the special tests also we did. And engine also used in loop, because main problem what we had was the engine problem was there. So engine also we used a test. So for this, when we were doing a Chandrayaan 2 time, problem was the setup was at Mahendragiri in place called Tamil Nadu, but due to wind and other reasons, the hanging things what you are seeing in the center, this was having with the engine and all the landing sensors. If the air is acting on this, we will not be able to test properly. And the time also was very short, so we were not able to do the test with the engine properly, because the launch date was approaching very fast. So we couldn't do. But because this full setup with the crane and all those setups were moved in the right side, if you see, it was moved to Shar Sriharikota, and the full system was made once again, and end-to-end test with the engine and the sensors we did in closed loop and demonstrated the performance. And one more test was Chandrayaan 2, we used the aircrafts to do the landing sensor test, but in Chandrayaan 3 we used the helicopter, because helicopter can go at 100 meter also, 50 meter also, whereas aircrafts, the minimum height at which we can do the testing was only at 500 meter. So this, all these things gave a lot of insight to improve our performance. Everything was tested. With all the testing, everybody worked as a team. So that is the success for what full ISRO is, always ISRO team only it is. So with the teamwork, we got full results. These are all the different landing sensors what you are seeing. So the main system is the navigation, guidance and control system, which takes inputs from the absolute sensor as well as the inertial sensor. Inertial sensor is the right side. I'm showing the photos. Laser-based gyros and its electronics. And landing sensors, we have used attitude sensor. Star sensor is the main attitude sensor. And landing sensors, we need both position and velocity. So position is given by the laser altimeter as well as we have used both laser based as well as RF based. So that is carbon radio altimeter also we have used, and for position velocity we have used lander Doppler velocity meter as well as horizontal velocity camera. So both these things are recovered to give the correction to the inertial sensors. So and one more was the LH DAC, that is the lander uh, horizontal hazard avoidance and detection camera, which will tell where craters are there, where it is safe place to land. So all these things, and again in the lander leg also we had touchdown sensors which will stop the engine, because if the engine is stopped after the touching down, either it can topple or it can go up and fall down. So exactly the touchdown sensor also worked and the engine were switched off. So with that, whatever improvement everybody told we did, so that we don't know how close you are to the treasure. So that is how everybody worked day and night, and the planned design phase as intended and as it did, everything went as per this timeline, and everything anyway it is made a history and everybody knows about this. So this is the terminal design phase. So here everything we have planned, if plan A, plan B, plan C, everything we have planned, and it worked with the first plan itself. So this is the success strategy. And next, coming to the rover, again because which was not tested in lander, so rover also we have used two cameras which will give the stereo image of the lander surface. Using that image we can know where the path lander has to take. So these cameras also are given from Leos, and this is the selfie taken by this camera, which is also the photo what I have shown there. And this is the rover coming down from the lander. So that is the photo and the rover path taken by the lander imager camera. And the right side top, if you see, that is the OHRC camera has taken the image of the lander which is landed. The center point, if you can see, this is the place where lander is landed. This photo also is available. Anyway, it is confirmed by the selfie camera from the rover camera. And these are all the things what is there in the papers. And coming to Aditya, which is one more important mission of ISRO to study about the sun. And this was the first time we have gone into L1 orbit, where if you leave any object in L1 orbit, it will move very, very slowly. That means in geostationary orbit, it takes one orbit 24 hours. Low Earth orbit, it takes 90 minutes to 120 minutes one orbit. Whereas here, it takes more than 178 days to cover one orbit. That means as if I am stationary, I am watching the sun all the time. So that is how this mission was planned. And these 4 points, people have put already some satellites. We are almost third to fourth people to put a satellites around L1 point, and to study about the coronal mass ejections and the solar flares what is coming from the sun, and the solar wind and its dynamics. So all these things we wanted to study about this. So many payloads were planned for this. To reach this orbit, it has taken 109 Earth days to reach this halo orbit. And these are all the different payloads. And in this also we have given payloads, magnetometer payload. And for this attitude sensors also our Leos we have provided. And this optics for the solar ultraviolet imaging telescope, SHOOT payload. Leos has provided the optics, what you are seeing here in the left side, and this is the optics design. These are all the beautiful pictures of the sun at different wavelengths, the different filters. And the VLC payload also, optics were provided by Leos. And the magnetometer, which was on a boom of length of 6 meter, was folded and sent to L1 point. In the L1 point, the boom was deployed, and two magnetometers at 3 meters and 6 meters gave the magnetic field, which is one of the highest accuracy of less than 1 Tesla. 1 nanotesla is the accuracy of this magnetometer, which is working very beautifully. And the star sensors, which is the Mark II star sensor, 10 arc second accuracy, whereas active high accuracy active pixel sun sensor which gives 4 arc second accuracy, which provides roll and pitch axis orientation, whereas ya was provided by the star sensor. So this is how the satellite is getting controlled all the days, and all the payloads are working. But VLC payload, there are some issues, still people are trying to sort it out. And this is the magnetometer, because so many solar events are happening, and whatever evenings happens,
एक
the
छोरा कोण
magnetic
डायमंड पकडे किती
field change. So the magnetic field changes are sensed by both the sensors.
तुमका सिंगल डायमंड
Already
पेंडंट टाकून
already it is verified with the other people's satellites. Discover is one more satellites. So with respect to that, we have compared, and the coronal mass ejection events are confirmed, and lot of studies and other things are being done by the scientists. And the latest mission, what we see is, I think, hope I'm not taking time, another 5-10 minutes, I'll complete it. So, rendezvous and docking mission. This is important mission. Why it is important is, tomorrow, if you want to dock or if you want to make our own Bharatiya space station, you need to go and dock to that to take our astronauts to the space station. So this docking experiment is very, very important. How to dock and what is the way to reach, and how to reduce the speed of the satellite, and then two systems when it is docking without damaging, how to do. So for this, again, lot of new systems with docking sensors were made, and it was almost like what I can say is to here slight difference, that's all. Only there things were from the moon surface, here from the other satellites. So this is how the mechanisms and other sensors, everything was done, and lot of videos also are there. You can go through the videos. Today I have not connected any videos. This is the last docking mechanisms. The petals, three petals will get docked, and then some rigidization technique will happen so that it will hold together, and with the holding, both the satellites can go together. That is how it is done, and then it will get undocked also. So these are all the different sensors which we have used based on vision as well as laser based. And the cameras, what we have flown here is two cameras. Here, the system, how it works is, one is called the chaser satellite, the other one is the uh, docking satellite. So it will, whichever sensor is there, the other satellites, we have put some laser sources. So this camera will scan the laser source and then use that image to tell the 3 degree of rotation as well as the position, because I should know yaw roll pitch angles as well as all the three angles position also, because both attitude means the orientation or the angle of rotation, and the position both are important to know the relative distance between these two. So these things were done, and for this, the how the images were captured, we have made test in the field. So this center point, if you see the images captured by the camera, the laser diode image at 250-meter distance, it will look like this. But when it is at a 2 kilometer distance, all the laser diode images will merge and show like a single image. So at 2 kilometer, the resolutions are very poor, so the accuracy will be poor. As we come closer with the camera separation, we can tell very correctly the distance and the rotation angle more accurately. Actually, these cameras are designed in such a way that it can give an more than better than point to 2 centimeter. In fact, in accuracy we have designed. Finally, I didn't know because I was now retired. So the performance of the sensors, whatever we have planned, I don't know. This when we did the field test, I know this is what the sensors are supposed to work. So this is how we did the test in Chitradurga, and we had a special robots, and which is at the 15 meters distance, both chaser as well as the target, both were kept, and we have captured the different things at different positions. So all these rendezvous and docking tests we did in-house in our labs, and all the sensors were validated, and performance was I think you know the success, how it was docked. So the docking things all are worked as expected. So people are now very confident to make our own Bharati Antariksh station which I'll be coming in the future activities. So first thing is the next important mission is the Gaganyaan mission or the human space mission. So here we have an orbital module and the crew module. Inside the crew module only the astronauts will be there. But first we will be sending two test vehicles without any astronauts to validate all the systems, because whenever humans are involved the risk is too much. So first without human, two test vehicles, in fact three they are planning. So they will send these modules, validate all the systems, then human will go. Already you have seen four astronauts are already selected, so they will be there 7 days in space. But right now two astronauts only will fly, but the capsule can take three astronauts. So this will be planned with our GSLV Mark III rocket, and this is the overall configuration. Already test vehicle readiness level it has reached. Most of the systems are getting validated. So for this they did lot of tests, and each and every test is they have learned something new. So improvements are being done, and crew escape systems also are made. So every test is getting almost ready. I think anytime they may, this year itself they may send one test vehicle. So this is one. Vayomitra is the talking human, which will be a companion to the Gaganyaan. It's a robo. And this was, I think people know our cosmonauts Rakesh Sharma and Ravish Malhotra. So I was able to meet both of them. So this is one of the photos, and with the Vayomitra also I took a photo. And this is the Gaganyaan test vehicle. What is already these things were tested, and people have seen how the systems are working, because everything has to be tested as individually, and then further full thing also will be tested. So the reusable launch vehicle is the future things, because already everybody is doing it. This is really important, because the money involved in bringing back a satellite, once it is launched, the vehicle can be reused. Already the technology is available everywhere, but India, we are yet to make this. So for that, preliminary things are successfully tested, and automatic landing things were demonstrated. This was done in Chitradurga on 2nd April 2023. And this is the future mission what we ISRO is planning, because already many satellites are left with no fuel. So either you can fuel the spacecraft and make its life more longer, or dock with one more satellite and then service that satellite, because payloads everything is working, fuel is not there to operate. So these are all the future things. Either we can service, or you can do some inspection, or you can dock with something else, or you can fuel the satellites. So these are all the things they are planning. And the other one is the Bharatiya Antariksh Station. So our own space station also ISRO is planning. So these are all the upcoming satellites what they are planning as of now. So I wanted to tell all the students, unleash your potential, embrace the journey. And these two institution about how to join in ISRO. Already ISRO is having Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology College. It is there at Thiruvananthapuram, where the number of syllabus is very limited. Avionics, aerospace engineering, and physical science is available, and you can do both graduation, postgraduate, doctoral programs. And people whoever is working, studying here, they will be allowed to enter ISRO labs, and they can use all the national laboratories for their studies. The other engineering courses, anyway, people may be knowing, just I am covering it. These are all the different engineering courses, not only engineers courses, MSc, MCA, MBA, diploma, ITI, helpers, drivers, everybody is required to work at ISRO. Not only in technical, even administrative, purchase, accounts also are required. So there are no secrets to success. It is the result of preparation, hard work, and learning from failure. That is what ISRO is standing even today. And what Abdul Kalam has told, success is when your signature turns into your autograph. That is how now ISRO is seen by everybody. The success is making our ISRO's name known to the whole world, not only world, throughout the world, everybody is knowing about our ISRO's activities today. And I wanted to put this slide. Today we have only one earth, so we should protect our earth. because already by putting so many satellites and the pods, rocket pods and the unused satellites, our space also is too much crowded. The outer line is the geostationary orbit, and the inside all the white dots are one way or other some satellites. So all these debris, some are working, some are not working, so we are polluting our space as well as our earth. Both has to be saved. So for this, the students who are going to upcome come with a beautiful ideas to remove and how to use our both our earth as well as space, a good place for all of us to live together. Thank you for your patience hearing, and now the thing is open for the questions.
Yes, anybody? Thanks, Kalpana ma'am, for enriching lecture. Any of our participants have any questions to ask? They can please raise their hand, or they can take this opportunity to ask a question.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yes.
Ma'am, in the beginning, what inspired you to go into the field of space?
Okay. First, initially, when I took the engineering, I studied textile engineering. Okay, that is the way I joined engineering course. But during my course first year, I was very much fascinated by the electronics and communication. That was the new emerging field in the year 1980s. So I was really attracted towards that. So ECE was my degree course, but ISRO, at that time, it was never in mind I will be joining ISRO, because ISRO, I just applied. So they called me for interview, and I joined ISRO. The job what they gave me was for the Indian national satellite, which we have to make indigenously. So the design wise, the sensor processing electronics package, what Mangesh has told, was given to me. There, whatever I studied in engineering, I applied it. And the way what we study in theory, when you see practical, it's like our chemistry lab thing, results, no? When you know that is the mineral what we have done, and if the results are very nice, you will be feel elated. Similar thing happens to me. And the first satellite, when it went inside, I was really happy about my things, how it is working. And though I'm not able to see it, by seeing the signals on ground, I was able to sense how it was work. So that has made me to stuck to ISRO for the past 38 years. And each and every project was different for me. See, if you are able to do the same routine work, you would have got bored. It's like that computer software engineers, where you do a work, what is input, what is output, you don't know. But the place where I worked, I know what I am doing, from where I am getting the signal, how my things are working. So everything was like things put in front of me. So that is what was made me to stuck to ISRO. And ISRO is a place where you are given all the freedom to work. So your ideas are taken. They have given, if you are capable, they have given and elevated you. So that motivation, and it's like a family like organization structure. So that has inspired me a lot. Otherwise, before joining, I didn't know ISRO will be like,
Granulator.
yes. So that is how ISRO has inspired me.
Okay, ma'am.
Yo, what's that song that goes like
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Anybody question?
Yeah, Despacito. Yeah, what's the name? Oh my God, you're.
So that means ISRO has future scopes of even sending satellites and rockets to other planets also.
Yes. Now we are planning for first Venus. Already some studies they have done, because Venus environment is very not like our earth environment. So they want to send one Venus to go around Venus. So that is there. Then beyond that, people may plan some other meteoroids as well as Jupiter, Saturn. Already other countries have sent satellites. So main thing is we need to, the other one is the we want planning to make sample return missions and Mars landing. We have not done at Mars. So Mars landing also ISRO is planning. Right now, one mission, but with other agency we are planning, but again it is to the moon only. So Mars landing mission also is there in the cards.
Ma'am, one question from one of our participants
Yeah, please.
text me. So, as you talked about a lot of great spacecraft and the satellites been orbiting the Earth, and then we did Chandrayaan 1, Chandrayaan 2, then
Yeah.
even Mangalyaan. And as you said that we plan to do maybe Chandrayaan 4 and Mangalyaan 2 kind of activity. So is there any way we do plan to set up a base at uh, at, at moon or something
Moon,
like
moon, yes. See, first thing is now, I think people might have already know about NASA's plans of sending a women and then they want to make the moon colony. What they are planning is to reach Mars, it takes so many days. Suppose intermediate place, if we have a place to put and then go from there, that is what people are thinking. So to know that, first thing is we should have main thing is survival is oxygen. Oxygen is not there. So next one is water. So now we know water molecules are there in moon. So one mission, upcoming mission with JAXA, that is Japan, we are planning to send one Lupex mission. So there mainly they wanted to study how much water is available inside the crater, so that if you make a moon base, so water will be used as your energy, hydrogen and oxygen they want to separate and make an energy, so that with the energy they can do many things. So that is how people are planning to set up moon colony first. But India also may do, because for that we are also planning sample return missions, that is the Chandrayaan 4. So once we bring samples, we will also come to know how much water is there, so where we can do. So many things, it is all exciting projects are ahead.
yeah, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody has any other question?
I don't know, kids, are you there?
Yeah, they are there. They are there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Anybody has any question? Or we are already at 6:30 now.
No, no more questions. I've asked.
Okay. If you want, you can send it to my Gmail also. I forgot to give my Gmail. I'll send it through Mangesh or Bharat sir, so that I can answer in my Gmail
Yeah, yeah.
also.
We'll circulate you.
Yeah, yeah, better.
I think if we do not have any further questions from anyone participant, so I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of everyone present. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Kalpana ma'am for her insightful and inspiring talk on ISRO's special missions. I think, I mean, your vast experience and deep knowledge has given us a profound understanding of India's space achievement and future endeavors. We really appreciate the time and effort and dedication you have put sharing this valuable insight with us. And your contribution to ISRO and the field of space technology was really commendable and inspiring for all of us. Uh, thank you once again for enlightening us and motivating the next generation of space enthusiasts. We definitely look forward to more such inspiring sessions in future from you, ma'am. Thank you very
Yes,
much. On
surely
behalf.
I'll do. So actually, each and every topic, no, I can talk more, because today I wanted to give a overall activities of ISRO. So each activity, because the students level at this level, it is very difficult to grasp the technology behind that. And later on, see, these are all the ideas. This is the way we did. I can give with a little more, slightly deeper inside also, so that once, whenever next opportunity comes, I would like to be there and give the talk. That is how it will be connected with the people. Though I am there online, I'm not able to see your faces. And I don't know, somehow I was also not able to connect my video. Anyway, I'll
Yeah,
pick
ma'am.
it up.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
I'll find out.
In fact, we were talking last month also that if you're traveling to Mumbai, we definitely would like to hear you
Yes,
face to face. in
Yeah,
one of
yeah,
our
better.
schools.
Thank
Whenever
you.
I come towards Bombay side, I will inform you. I will
Yeah.
surely give a lecture in person so that the people also can take that type of studies, and especially science objectives are really we need a lot of people to work, because science instrument making is not that easy. We can now make the satellite, but making the science to know about it. The other day he was talking about meteors. The meteors also affects our satellites. So how it affects, how to predict, how we can avoid. So all those things now we are looking for autonomous way of detecting and stopping that, because anyway the servers I cannot stop, but I can prevent it affects our satellites. Like that many things are there, and even our own pollutions, what is happening, how to reduce it, how to make our life easier for the future generation. Lot of things you people also can do and contribute, and this will surely ISRO is helping the people in many ways. Like people like us who are retired, we can also do our own way of helping you people. So I'm really looking forward to meet all of you, and I want to thank from the bottom of my heart for giving me this opportunity. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Thank
Thank you,
ma'am.
you.
ma'am.
Thanks everyone for joining the call. We'll see you for
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
with this. I will conclude this session today. Thanks once again for joining the call.
Okay,
Please
thank you,
give
Bharat and
more
Manish.
sessions like
Thank
this. It
you,
is
ma'am.
very nice to hear about all ma'am's
Thank you.
experience
Thank you.
and her experience in
Thank
the
you.
ISRO field.
Is that a brand?
Thank
Guess the
you.
game. It has to be Uno. This is something stupid, so I'm gonna say something like Ultra Mega Card. Yeah, Umo. I got it correct. Let's go. It's Umo. See it.